MOWER'S CLUB with Scope and Missile. Quick recap overnight. Bulldogs 32 defeat the Knights 2. Back-to-back wins for the Dogs. Standout performances. Reid Money 2 try assists. Jacob Preston 2 tries. Addo Carr 2 tries as well. Let's have a quick listen. The most important aspect of that scoreline, Scope, is the 2 for the Knights. The Bulldogs' second best defence in the comp. This is what Cameron Ciraldo had to say about their defence.
I thought our defence has been building all year. Something we've worked really hard on over the last 18 months, and their connection and how hard they work at training is starting to show out in the way we defend. It wasn't all perfect tonight. We missed a lot of tackles, but we scrambled and worked hard for each other. And I thought probably that Jacob Preston try save in the corner probably epitomised how hard the boys have been working and what we're about. So yeah, it was really pleasing. It's the exact same system that we had when Newcastle pumped us twice last year. The change has been around the culture. We've got good people in who want to work hard and they love each other. So whenever you've got that, you're going to be hard to break down. I love watching them defend at the moment.
And so do I, mate. A couple of players, he mentioned a highlighted player in particular, Jacob Preston. He, being an ex-back rower myself, I just love watching him play, mate. He is going to be a long-term. He's got. I guess because Stephen Crichton's doing such a good job at a young age, I was about to say he's got captain material about him, but he'll definitely be a part of the leadership group in coming years. And
would Michael Maguire look at him? Not maybe now, but sure. Would he have considered?
Mate, he was on the radar last year, not to play last year or play this year, but definitely when you start looking at attributes of players, like early on, I imagine, again, going back to yesterday, I had a luncheon with Gus, and he's one of the best, I guess, the best people to listen to when it talks about specific players. And I asked him what an origin player was, and it's all effort. It's not skill. Like those sorts of players, and you start seeing players that are willing to keep moving when others stop, and that's the perfect example. That try-saver on Marzu after Toby Sexton puts his body on the line. He must have been his eyes wide open when Jackson Hastings puts across that kick. He finds himself
one-on-one.
It was a scramble play. It was a beautiful heads-up play from Hastings too.
It was, yeah.
Right on the mark, gets Marzu in the perfect position. Jacob Preston gave it absolutely everything and just managed to drag a boot across the line. And like Cameron Ciraldo mentioned there, they've implemented some structures and a culture there now, and they work really hard for each other. By no means was that the prettiest performance that I've seen from a Bulldogs team, but when they did get their opportunities, they took every one of them.
Just a quick shout out as well. Lipoi Hopoi made his debut last night, played 38 of the best, 15 runs, 121 metres, 42 post contact, rock solid. In speaking with people at the club, young Lipoi Hopoi, and I believe there's another young front rower, Todd. Can't remember his exact name, but those guys are the reason that the Bulldogs haven't gone big in the market on front rowers. Their generation next at the Bulldogs. Young Lipoi Hopoi, I think he's 19, maybe 18, 19.
Look good.
Hasn't even got his date of birth on the NRL website. That's how fresh he is. But great debut. Now, just on the Knights, they're struggling to score points, Scope. I think they're averaging now, after that game, 15, 16 points a game. So I'm wondering, at what point do they bring in Will Price? I saw him in the preseason. He was amazing, an excitement machine. This is what Adam O'Brien had to say about the potential of bringing in Will Price.
I'm making knee-jerk reactions right now, even though I have changed the spines earlier in the year a few times, but I think Will's still in that to him now.
Nice little stray there from Adam O'Brien to Joey, because he obviously had a good game in the game before. He must have brained him.
I should say.
In the New South Wales Cup the game before. Joey's obviously commentating on that game, so therefore would have been there to see the New South Wales Cup and thought, yeah, we could do a bit of that, especially with only 2 points on the board. I will say, and I agree with him in the sense that they've been really good, the Knights. You know, they lose Callum Ponga.
Yeah, they have.
When he's back in the team, he creates a lot of the points.
That's your points.
Despite what David Armstrong, I think he scored in every game for the Knights that they've won in that period that they've lost Kalen. Kalen creates points for other players. I've always been of the opinion that Jack Cogger and Jackson Hastings don't complement each other. They're similar players. They both would probably prefer to control the team.
Yeah.
So you've got two halfbacks. So therefore, I agree with Joey in the sense I think Will Price or Tyson Gamble complement Jackson Hastings or Jack Cogger, whichever way you'd go. For me, it would be Jackson Hastings. So therefore, I think there is some merit in what Joey said. I think you sort of need more of an X factor. And again, especially with Kalen being out at the moment. But in saying that, like I said, they've wanted to get into the grinding games, just similar to what the Bulldogs did to them last night. Bit of an arm wrestle, win a game ugly, get 2 points, get out of there. That's the style without Kalen. And it served them well. Didn't work out last night, but it's not panic stations for the Knights, in my opinion.
All right, let's go back to Thursday night. Eels 34 defeat Sharks 22. The Eels have ended their 5-game losing streak. They got their stars back. Moses in, Gutherson in, and no surprise, results follow. When I watched this game, and both teams, by the way, not too keen on tackling on Thursday night, but when I watched this game, I couldn't help but think, is Brad Arthur hard done by leaving this time in the season, given that he didn't have his two best players on the field?
This was a tough one for me. I've had a relationship with Brad Arthur. Brad Arthur was one of my favourite coaches. I've got a high opinion of him. I probably do think it was unfair, but I understand the pressure cooker of what Parramatta are. And it's probably not necessarily the start of the season was the reason behind Brad Arthur's departure.
Yeah.
Now, what he's done a great job of in his 10 or 11-year reign of coaching, which was unbelievable. I think it was a really underrated part. Parramatta is a power club. It's a big team in Sydney. And to be able to hold on to that role for as long as he did, he never really had poor... Every now and again, he had a bad season, but then he was quickly rebound. Now, last year wasn't a great season, and it started slowly for him. Big part of that, no Mitch Moses, and you can see clearly that everyone went up another notch with Mitch Moses in the team.
His kicking game, his control, even the way that he motivates the other players or keeps the other players in the team accountable. He's everything to that side.
He's got a cockiness and a brashness about him that rubs off on the players for the better.
Yeah.
Like when you watch Mitch Moses, my opinion from an outsider looking in, he believes he is the dude. I know there's Nathan Cleary in the competition, Daly Cherry Evans, but that's the sort of confidence you got to play with when you're a chief playmaker. You got to think that you're the best 7 in the competition, whether anyone else believes it or not. And with that, it breeds confidence. Gutho feeds off the back of it. The biggest winner from the whole night was Dylan Brown. Dylan Brown got back to worrying about controlling the team and getting to a kick to what? Off his left foot twice, straight under the post at the 65-minute mark when everyone's fatigued. That's the best version of Dylan Brown. So, everyone was great. I thought the two front rowers in particular were great as well. Regan Campbell-Gillard, even though he got licked by Royce Hunt, which was a great shot. He carried the ball. Every carry was like his first carry of the game. And then Junior come off the bench. He was outstanding. All their senior players really stepped up for him on Thursday night. Against a Cronulla team now, they got humbled against the Penrith Panthers. They were missing Cam McInnes and their two leaders. I thought Will Kennedy was outstanding. Mm-hmm. He did everything he could to try to will Cronulla to a victory. But that's off the back of a really big month of footy now. That's two concerning losses. Yeah,
I have two questions for you about the Sharks. Question one, so they've conceded 76 points in 2 weeks. One against a top flight team, one against not a cellar dweller, but a lower ranked team. Are they genuine title contenders this year, or are they say, Adam Fanua Blake short of being genuine title contenders?
I still think they're going to be they've always been tier 2 for me. So I've got Penrith, the Broncos, and Melbourne Storm in tier 1. And there are a number of teams that sort of float in between tier 2, and Cronulla are one of those teams. They need to learn how to take the next step. I'm not worried about in the sense you see teams, it's such a long season. There are so many different factors that play into a season where you're going to go through the lulls. It's important that you get out of the lull quickly. It can't drag on because momentum can go as positively or negatively as you allow it to. So you need to find a way, and it's through effort areas. they'll probably be missing Nico on the other side of Origin. I can't imagine if he does get through Origin with that calf, Fitzy will be rushing to get him back in.
Right.
And I thought Braden Trindle actually was good returning after a 3 or 4 week.
Well, that was my second question. When Nico does come back, we saw Trindle there, we saw Atkinson there. Atkinson's been great.
Yep.
For the past month. Who gets that number 6 spot next to Nico?
I think Braden Trindle will get it back. I think he really showed that for me, there was a couple of occasions where if it was a 50-50 opportunity to who finishes the set or who wanted the ball, Braden Trindle with his experience naturally took control of the game. I think there was a big moment just before halftime where he got on the end of his own kick, basically shot out, sort of changed the momentum a little bit. Will Kennedy ends up picking that ball up off that set, finds Mulatalo, and Will Kennedy runs away. That was a huge play, and it was started from Trindle. So I'd say Trindle, but they're in a fairly good position where I think Nico will miss some time, obviously, in and around Origin, either playing or resting. So they've got 2 really good options there.
On Parramatta, this may be the start of them turning their season around, but one observation I wanted to get your thoughts. Just watching them play and watching the way at times Cronulla picked them apart offensively, they seem to be a very big team who struggles with line speed and getting back into the line after a tackle. So I saw multiple occasions where either Campbell Gillard or Paulo or Offa Hengawe or Sean Lane or Weremu Greg ended up with their back to the attacking side because they're scrambling to get back into the line. They're scrambling to get back to marker, and they just seem big and slow. And then you watch Canterbury last night, who have a tiny forward pack, but their line speed is insane, and their ability to get back to marker each time, regardless of how the tackle ends up, is second to none at the moment.
Well, it's going to be a really intriguing matchup next week, right? The Bulldogs versus Parramatta, 2 completely different styles of forward packs.
Yeah.
If you do, the pros and cons to both, right? If you do have a bigger pack, then you have to win that physical battle. Like Regan, Junior, Brycey Cartwright, I thought his physicality was on point as well. So if you do have a bigger pack, they're going to have to power through the middle of the Bulldogs, which a lot of teams have tried to do because they've got a smaller pack. And I think their ability to play with the ball was huge as well. They were promoting the offloads. Now, when you're playing on the front foot, that's when you do to get the opportunity to offload the footy a little bit more, so you've got to take advantage of it. But the Bulldogs scramble well. So 2 different styles of forward packs next week, which will be good. And it's a Monday night game as well, off the back of obviously Origin being on Wednesday. So.
And that's also our public holiday that Monday.
It is too.
Yeah, so we could have a scenario where the front row on field at the time, or the middles on field at the time for the Eels is Paulo, Campbell Gillard and Offa Hengawe, who probably have an average weight of somewhere around that 115 mark.
Yeah.
Up against Kurt Mann, Bailey Hayward, and Josh Curran, who would have an average body weight of high 80s, low 90s.
Yeah,
I mean, Bailey Hayward would probably be low 80s.
I'd say it'd be about 85.
Kurt Mann, low 90s, high 80s.
Yeah, high 80s, I reckon.
And Josh Curran, maybe high 90s.
Yep, about 95 to 100, I reckon.
Big difference and completely different game plans. And that's a really intriguing thing about the NRL this year is that the styles are so different. A Bulldogs team's going for a small forward pack passing around. Panthers go for a dominant back 5 who just power through the meters. And Eels have got a massive forward pack. Sharks actually have quite a big forward pack.
Yep.
There's so many different styles at the moment. All are having success in their own ways, and it's super intriguing.
Yeah, and I think the rule changes and some of the... I've always been big on this, right? Trying to copycat successful teams, if you don't have the same makeup of team, you're going to find yourself in trouble. Like, I remember there was a period where at Parramatta, a couple of coaches, Stephen Kearney had come from Melbourne, and we try to implement what they were doing at Melbourne from the years before. And that's only natural, right? If you come from
a successful system.
Yep, you try to implement that and you try to implement some standards at the club. But we just didn't have the roster. We didn't have the makeup. Like, we didn't have Cam Smith through the middle. Matt Keating was a really underrated hooker, in my opinion. I used to love playing with Matt Keating, but he didn't have the craft of Cam Smith. So just straight off the bat there as a forward pack, the creativity of a guy where Matt Keating was more of a workhorse, really good defensive player, Used to like to play quick. Different styles for different teams, and you've got to be able to adapt your playing style to your cattle.